Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. It's my pleasure to be with you today to talk to you about what's new in the IBM Cognos Analytics release 11.1.3. Today's webinar, like all our webinars, is being recorded, and you can pick up any previously presented webinar from our website, www.lpa.com, in our resources section, or also on our YouTube channel. In both places, you'll find our entire library of what's new in Cognos Analytics recordings going all the way back to early versions of 11.0, plus some deep dives into things like dashboards and explorations and data modules. You'll also find some more general analytics discussions and how you would apply analytics to your organization, as well as recordings from our other practice areas, financial performance management, information management, as well as advanced analytics like SPSS Modeler and the newer Watson technologies. We hope you find this as a valuable resource for education as you continue on your analytics journey. And while on that journey, it may turn out that you need some help from time to time, and LPA would be honored to earn your business. In my area, the Business Intelligence and Analytics area, we offer services along these lines: upgrades and migrations, upgrading you to Cognos 11 from any of the previous versions of ReportNet 8, 10, or 11, as well as migration services, perhaps from Cognos Series 7 or from a different technology onto Cognos. If you would like to outsource the care and feeding of your Cognos environment, the day-to-day monitoring, perhaps the administration, perhaps even some of the how-to questions and the development of small projects, our managed services offering may be of interest to you. If you have a big backlog of reports and you would like to expeditiously catch up on that backlog, LPA has a specific reporting service that has a proven process for completing reports both accurately and quickly. Perhaps a health check might be of interest. We find that health checks come up in two situations. One is just before you upgrade, especially an upgrade in place, and you want to know if you're building on a strong foundation. You may have us come in and validate your existing environment to be sure that it is installed and configured per best practices, that your applications have been developed, again, with best practices. And that would include things like your framework models and your data modules, as well as how your reports are written, how your security is set up. Any number of different topics could be checked. The output is an actionable report with a collection of tasks that we believe, if implemented, would improve or stabilize your Cognos environment. And that may be, like I said, to build upon as a solid foundation. It also may be that you're not looking at an upgrade, but you are looking at, let's say, performance issues or stability problems, and a health check from LPA might be able to uncover the root cause for those issues. And then finally, we have a complete array of training services, again, in Cognos Analytics, but also across many other IBM products. Many of these materials we've written ourselves, and we do keep up to date from release to release. Also, we have the ability to resell any of the IBM self-paced training materials, as well as some of the classes that we have not completely rewritten on our own. For example, the 5-day Framework Manager class. I've recently taught a 3-day Transformer class. Literally any Cognos technology, speaking from my own practice, we have the ability to train one or more of your folks to get you up to speed on those technologies. So again, LPA and I in particular would be proud to earn your business if we can. Because of the great response we have gotten to this offer, we are continuing to offer a no-cost upgrade assessment for you. If you are interested in upgrading to the latest release of Cognos 11, and you would like to understand what that upgrade would entail, both in terms of hardware and other considerations from a physical perspective, as well as from an hours to commit, we will work with you folks. Typically, this is over the phone, but it could be in person if necessary. We have a questionnaire, tried and true, that we will go through with you. We will ask a bunch of probing questions, and at the end, we'll deliver a work breakdown structure with estimates. We'll talk to you about the kind of breakage that you might find on upgrade of your reports and know what it would take then to remediate. We'll do a review of your licensing if you wish, and give you some license recommendations. We'll help you sell the upgrade if you wish, from a benefits over your current version perspective. The training that we believe would make the most sense based on where your organization is now versus what they may need to learn that is new with the Cognos 11 software, and a proposal with if LPA did the upgrade, whether in total or alongside your organization, what that might cost. So all of that would be free and is not a massive investment of your time, because we have this tried and true proven process for capturing the information and doing the assessment. So if this sounds of interest, please reach out to us. The easy way is to email us at sales@lpa.com, and that will get routed to the proper person who will get back to you and schedule the upgrade assessment. So what's new in Cognos Analytics 11.1.3? Throughout the webinar, if you have questions, you can submit them via the WebEx chat feature. At the end of the webinar, if there is time, and I have to warn you in advance, there may not be, because we're trying to keep this webinar to 30 minutes and there's a lot to get through. But if there is time, I'll answer as many as I can while on the air. But as frequent visitors to my webinars know, I always answer all questions, even the ones I don't get to while we're together, via email after the webinar is over. So please submit any question you have, whether it's about 11.1.3 or about any other aspect of Cognos that you have questions about, and I will be very happy to answer those. Our agenda today, we're going to talk about the enhancements that are in the 11.1.3 world. They come in the following flavors. There's some updates to Explorer. There's some new visualizations called column with target or bar with target. The AI assistant continues to be improved. There are some updates in the reporting world. There's a whole new integration with email for sharing content that I'd like to show you. Data modules have some changes, and then there's a couple of other odds and ends. I'll do demonstrations as we go. And like I said, questions and answers time allowing. But again, I'll answer everything you submit via email, regardless of how much time we might have during the webinar today. Explorer enhancements go along these lines. So the biggest, I think most obvious one is the relationship diagram changes. So the relationship diagram before 11.1.3 was primarily a number of columns based view. It really didn't pick necessarily the columns that had the strongest relationship strength to whatever your target was. It was based on number, and there was a slider where you could increase or decrease the number of columns that were presented relative to your target in the diagram. The new orientation is that it's all about relationship strength. So the default view shows the fields with the highest relationship strength to the selected target, and the slider is not about the number of fields shown, but it's about the relationship strength that is shown between 10% and 100%. There's been a couple of updates to the Explorer visualizations, specifically driver analysis and spiral. Now work for both types of data, both continuous data and for categorical data. So if you will, measures and non-measures are supported now in the driver analysis and in the spiral visualizations. There's a new way to do a comparison. Comparisons were such a common thing to do, and you had to do a number of clicks in order to do a comparison. They've made it much easier with a button, and you can now do a save as a story in an exploration. So let's take a quick look at explorations. I'm going to start out by actually showing you the older version. This is version 11.1.2, and on the explore relationships in your data diagram, as you can see, the slider here is about filtering the number of fields shown. So my target is total charges. These are the number of fields that are set right now is 10, and if I change the slider, it will add more fields. And irrespectiveness, pretty much of the relationship strength to total charges. the orientation of this particular screen has changed. This is now 11.1.3. And so you see that the slider is all about relationship strength. So the relationship strength is the predictor, the predictive value of the particular column. And total charges is, again, my target. But you see the default view is those columns that have the highest predictive value relative to total charges. There's this secondary relationships checkbox that you can also turn on. That was on automatically. The primary and secondary relationships were automatically shown in the prior release. Now that's an option for you. And you can increase the number of columns that are shown by changing the predictive strength slider so that it filters out based on that predictive strength. So it's a new orientation to the same concept, which is you select a field of interest and you see how the other fields in your data source relate to that field of interest as in terms of predictive strength. It's just that the filter now and the default view is really focused on those columns that have the highest predictive strength, and then you can change the filter, if you will, for the predictive strength to add or take away individual items. Another change that is part of Explorer had to do with that comparison notion. So I'm going to say, let's suppose we started with this diagram and we wanted to do a comparison. In the past, we would have to use a menu up here on the top left and do 2 or 3 steps in order to get the comparison done. Now there's a button, compare. If I click compare, it will duplicate my visualization on a new card. It will place 2 of that visualization on my card, and then I can filter each visualization differently. Do something really quick, like perhaps phone service. I will drag over here as a local filter, and I'll filter one of them by phone service, yes, and I'll filter the other one by phone service, no. So now I have 2 things to compare and see how yes versus no on the phone service changes my data. Looks like it changes it a lot. I've got the ability to do my comparison lines here, which this synchronizer here has the compare line turn on and off. So that stuff hasn't changed. This is all, and again, I'm not trying to teach you explorations. I'm trying to show you the new differences, and the new difference is really that compare button that got me very quickly to this comparison visualization versus the couple steps that it would have taken in the previous release. So those are a few of the changes in explorations. Let's move on to other new things. So there is a new notion of a target in a column and bar visualization. Now, in a dashboard or an exploration or a story, the way this manifests is just a new drop zone in the column or bar visualization. You could add a target measure. In a report, in the 11.1 visualizations, you'll find a target bar and a target column visualization specifically. So I'll do a quick example of those. Here's what they would look like. This happens to be a version from a report. This is a target bar. And you see that I put planned revenue in the target. I have revenue as the main measure, and it's these black bars that represent planned revenue in this example. So this is what it would look like in a report. It's very similar in a dashboard. The AI assistant has been enhanced. A number of interesting enhancements like type ahead support. So as you type, you can gain some confidence that it understands you because it's going to try to forecast what you might be asking. I always found with the previous release of the assistant that as I typed, it wasn't clear to me if it would understand what I was typing, and when I would hit enter every once in a while, I would get I find nothing that matches kind of response. Here I gain some confidence as I'm typing because I get feedback as I type. It understands modifiers now, like average of this or total of that. As in this example, you see show top 10 products based on sale total. So it understands filters like top and bottom and other filters and more. It used to be you click the up arrow to get back your last question. They changed that to shift up arrow in this release, just FYI. And there's this new feature called Create Dashboard that will create a dashboard based on the data source in context, which is shown always in the context of which data source it's examining is always shown in the assistant. Let me give you a look at that. So I'm going to just go to the assistant here. Oh, that's the wrong environment. That's the right environment. I'm going to go to the assistant here in the environment I'm in. And you see there's my context, telco customer churn. Now it's important to note that my context is not the exploration. My context is the data. Okay, so it's not necessarily examining the exploration and creating a dashboard from it. It's examining the data and creating a dashboard from it when I do that create dashboard example. Oh, let me first do a quick just show me kind of example. So I'm going to do show average tenure in months. Tenure in months is the name of a column. You see now I'm starting to get some feedback so I can feel like it's understanding me. By internet service. And I'll hit enter. And it will do its best to come up with some visualizations for me that match what I typed in. So that's that notion of type ahead, and then I inserted an average in here to show you the modifier that it understood. But the one that I think is interesting, or well, at least to me, is this one, create dashboard. So it's going to look at that telco customer churn data source, and it's going to create a dashboard. Now, the dashboard it creates is not necessarily static in any way. In other words, once it creates this dashboard, you can go through and you can modify it. You can go ahead and change literally anything in it. You're not at all constrained because it was created automatically. It is a great way to get started, let's say. And then if you wanted to add or change what Cognos generated through the assistant, you absolutely can. So that could turn out to be a very a terrific starter. You get into a dashboard, let's say, you create, you select your data sources, and then you say create dashboard. And Cognos will go through and it will give you a starting point that you can then modify, add to, subtract from, or just change in place. So those are the enhancements in the assistant. In reporting, there have been some changes. Drill-through support has been added to the 11.1 visualizations. So the 11.1 visualizations is a new library of the visualization tools. A lot of overlap with the 11.0 visualizations, but if you looked at our What's New in 11.1 previous webinars, you know that there is this extra data notion baked into those visualizations, but they didn't have drill-throughs. So drill-throughs have been added now. The filter dialog. So when you are creating a report, you click on a column and you do create custom filter. Or if you right-click on a column in your package and say filter for report, it launched these filter wizards, I think of them, rather than an expression-based filter that you type in. These have been improved in the 11.1.3 release in a couple of different ways. One, they got checkboxes, which I really like, versus double-clicking or using the buttons that appear as you hover over an item. The search functionality has been improved. There are some advanced settings now relative to including nulls or excluding nulls that are a little bit more self-explanatory. And then maybe the most important for a lot of my customers is the ability to manually input values or paste in a list of values from, say, Excel. In the example that I show here in the screenshot, I chose manually input items, and then I changed the delimiter dropdown to new line. It defaults to comma. There's a couple of other options there. And then I copied the bunch of rows, a single column, but a bunch of rows from an Excel, and I just pasted them in. So this has been lacking and is the kind of thing that I know a lot of my customers want to be able to do, which is to paste in a collection of values. So that's now part of these custom filter dialogues. And then the report overview pane that is where you would go in a report to change the properties of the report, maybe set burst options, maybe enable or disable the interactivity. That pane really had nothing much on it except gave you access to the report property sheet. Now it has a bunch of information about the report, the sources, the parameters that are in use, some counts of objects, and a quick little copy button to copy the report XML to your clipboard. So let's take a look at some of the reporting changes. So I'm going to go ahead and just close these guys. I just don't like to have a lot of things open in my switcher. If you've taken training from me, you know I'm a closer. So I'm going to go new report. If you haven't seen the 11.1 reporting interface, and this is your first time, from an 11.0 perspective, what's changed primarily is how you move about the report. The explorers, if you will. The page explorer, the query explorer, the classes explorer, they're all under this new navigation toolbar. So that's probably the big news from an 11.1 perspective. For 11.1.3, let me get some data first. So I'll just go grab a package here. From an 11.1.3 perspective, I'll go and do a visualization just to show you that the target column and target bar are here, as I said. I'll go ahead and do a target bar, and then I'll filter it with the custom filter dialog. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do revenue as my length, and my target will be planned revenue. I'm going to do a bar for product lines, and they'll each get a color. And then I'm going to do a cluster of bars per year, and I'm going to go to page preview so you can see this new visualization type with the bars and the lines. Oops, I should probably sort my years so that they come out in a nice order. Okay, now if I want to filter on, let's say, region, I'm going to go and right click on region and do filter for report, which will bring up one of those filter wizards that has been improved. So you see that I've got this individual versus condition. So that's new as well, where you can put in a condition, contains an A, and it will only bring over regions with an A in them. You can't see them because I haven't turned on the filter text tool for here, so let me do that. So region contains A is my filter. So that's one way to go. Let me edit my filters and remove that one. And let me add one where I pick specific values. And I could pick them from here, or, let's suppose that, let me do a better example for the manual versus select a value. Let me do it on product, which just happens to have a ton of values. So in this case, right, the number of values over here is in the hundreds. And going through and selecting the ones that I want, I could certainly do, and you see I have to do page up and page down to get them. But if I have the list of products that I want to examine in a spreadsheet, I can do manually input, change to new line, and then just paste them here. And when I do paste them here, they'll show up over here as the values I selected. So changes to these, I think good changes to these filter wizards, I think of them as the create custom filter dialogues, I guess, technically. So a couple of changes in the report world. I am going to go to the report overview page just to show you that the sources are here, the count of objects are here. If you have parameters, you have to tick the checkbox for parameters, and then they will show up here. And then this is your copy the report to my clipboard button. And this is the validate your report button. So they've made this this view a bit more useful, because in previous 11.1.2, all you really came here for was to get to this property sheet. So now there's actually another reason to come here. Also a great way to learn about a report that you're modifying that you didn't actually write. So those are changes in the reporting world. So that's an overview screen with the parameters filled in just to give you a view of that. Sharing content by email is perhaps another big change. When you're viewing content, you can click the share button. And in previous releases, you could integrate with Slack in previous 11.1 releases. What they've done now is they've added email as an integration where you can send marked up potentially images of the BI output you're looking at, a dashboard, a story, a report. Select some recipients, send them an email, and the email will look like this. This is what you will get if it is sent to you. So this one, I've got my markups here. I've got an open dashboard button here as well as embedding it because I included a link and I included the image. And then I modified the image over here on the left. So easily now share and collaborate with BI and potentially annotate the BI you're looking at with the specific questions you are asking. So yet another integration point to make using and then getting value out of your BI even that much easier. Data modules have been enhanced. The numeric grouping, when you right click and you say I want to group age into high and low, into ranges of ages and name them. This notion of setting a fixed high and low border has been added, and multiple language support now for the group names has been added. If you upload a formatted Excel, those data formats will now be the default format for the columns in that Excel file. When you add it to a data module, they used to be just ignored and dropped when you uploaded an Excel, those data formats. Now they'll appear by default in your data module. You've added zoom controls over here to the image. So you used to be able to double click and shift double click to zoom if you didn't have a wheel on your mouse. Now there's explicit buttons. I think that's just much better from because who knew that you could double click and shift double click besides me. The validation panel, the tab, has been removed. It's been replaced with a panel that you open with a new button. The button will have the number of unresolved validation issues on it in red. You can see the unresolved validation issues here in the new panel that the button will open. So instead of using a tab for that, they've added a button. And otherwise, the validation is basically the same. It's just presented differently versus having it be one of the three tabs. You can also copy the error details to your clipboard so that you can keep them for later, I guess, if you need to. Other things, the default style for maps has changed. This default style used to be what this blue style. That's not the style anymore. The new default looks like this more gray background. Rather than the blue water over here is the big note thing I noticed. If you want to go back to the old view of the map, you can set it explicitly in a dashboard to blue. Otherwise, it's going to change automatically for you when you open your maps after upgrading. A couple of data server changes to a couple of databases. If you're using type 2 JDBC drivers, not type 3, which is for dynamic query mode, but type 2, which is native JDBC drivers for the so-called native API type drivers that some of you might be using for, and these would be sort of old things. They go into the drivers folder now too. That changed. They used to have to go in the bin64 folder. If you're a cloud user and you're running on 11.3, there is now a secure gateway that you have access to where you can very, very quickly set up access to your on-premise data sources using this secure gateway. And it's really sort of wizard driven. I believe you can have up to 10. So if you are a cloud user, accessing your on-premise data is even easier than it was before. So it looks like I have time to answer just one question. So if I take a look at the chat, Rich, can I upgrade in place? Oh, great question. So you may be aware that I had been advising clients in the 11.1.1 and 11.1.2 space that I had found issues upgrading in place to 11.1.1 or to 11.1.2 in the past, that my success record for upgrade in place was not high. I'm happy to report that with 11.1.3, I have done multiple upgrades. I've upgraded from 11.0.11 to 11.1.3, 11.0.12, 11.0.13, and 11.1.2, all the way to to 11.1.3 in place. And thus far, I have had no issues. I will say this: if you are going to do the upgrade yourself, to prepare for the upgrade in place, what I recommend is that you stop the Cognos service, you set up your system so that when you restart it, Cognos does not start automatically. So in Windows, for example, you would set the service to manual. Then restart your server, then do the upgrade process and do the upgrade in place. And then remember to set your service to start automatically again. And the reason I do this is because when I don't follow that process, I will sometimes get an indication that I've got locked files that will blow up the upgrade, and that's always a waste of time. So to avoid that, I have found the process of stopping the service, setting it to manual, in an appropriate way for your OS, restarting the server, and then doing the upgrade avoids these locked file problems, and it's a smoother upgrade. A quick reminder of some of the ways that LPA might be able to help you. And again, if you feel that you could benefit from any of these services from LPA, please reach out to us at sales@lpa.com. Also a reminder of our Cognos Upgrade Assessment and its continued availability. Again, sales@lpa.com if you find that would be valuable. And all that remains is for me to say thank you very much for joining me once again on one of our webinars. I hope you found it valuable, and I really look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.